Hey folks, this is Kalani. The Sepulcher of the First Ones is the new raid coming in patch 9.2, and the second boss, Dausegne, the Fallen Oracle, just became available for testing, so we're going to go through how it looks so far and what you'll need to take this boss down. To start with, the boss has a fairly standard tank swap. You get stacks when she hits you, and those stacks deal damage over time, so you'll need to make sure you swap so they don't get too high. A little bonus here is that the stacks also explode when they expire, dealing raid-wide damage and giving the tank a debuff that increases physical damage taken. So you'll have to swap early enough to prevent that explosion from killing your raid, and with enough leftover time for that debuff to expire. They're keeping the tanks on their toes this time. The boss will also use Obliteration arc. She'll face a random direction and wind up a big volley of shots. There are a few patterns for this, but basically a good chunk of the room will end up being covered in these black lines in a wide arc, and then the boss blasts those areas, dealing damage to anyone still there. Pretty easy to dodge as long as you don't run the wrong way. And then the boss will also summon Domination Cores. These deal a bit of damage to their target, but the main problem is that they drop nasty black pools on the floor that stay there for 2 minutes according to the dungeon journal, so you'll probably want to take these to the side of the room to keep things clean, and then just nuke them down as quickly as possible to prevent too many black pools from spawning. We did end up severely restricting our available room if these ads didn't die quickly, which makes dancing for some of the other abilities more annoying. Throughout the fight, the boss is going to jump to the big structures at the side of the room. The cross in the middle of the platform points towards them. There are 4 total, but one of them starts corrupted or dominated or whatever you want to call it. These are cosmic reservoirs. When the boss jumps to one of the undominated reservoirs, she siphons its power, dealing constant raid-wide AoE damage and giving the boss a shield. The raid-wide damage will continue until the shield is broken, so you have to DPS it down. That reservoir will then become dominated as well, which is important for later on. It's also worth noting that while the boss is AoEing, any black puddles on the floor will get bigger and bigger, so it's even more important to nuke that shield down as quickly as possible. It also looks like if the boss manages to siphon all of the reservoirs, she will instantly kill the raid and do a lot of abilities very quickly, so that's going to act as the hardened rage to the fight. This is where things get interesting because her last main ability is Disintegration Halo. This is a huge black ring that expands outwards and it starts from the dominated reservoirs. The halo will deal damage to anyone who gets hit and apply a debuff that increases the damage you take from halos by 500% for 6 seconds. After the boss channels from each reservoir and corrupts them, you're going to get 1 extra halo, so 1 per dominated reservoir. So you're going to start the fight with 1 halo, which doesn't do anything but damage, but after the first big AoE channel, you will then get 2 halos every time it's cast, 1 after the other. You'll need to get hit by the first halo with enough time for the debuff to fall off before getting hit by the second halo, otherwise it's going to one-shot you. Then it's going to go up to 3 halos after the next big AoE channel, so you have even more to juggle. It didn't seem too difficult for the most part. As long as you actively get hit by that first halo early, you should have enough time between the rings to drop your debuff. It's a cool mechanic though. And then the heroic Motability is Staggering Barrage. It looks fairly easy. 1 player is targeted with a big arrow and the boss fires 3 orbs towards them. Those orbs deal split damage to anyone between the target and the boss, but each player that gets hit also gets a debuff that increases damage from that ability. So you'll need a few players to soak the line so it doesn't one-shot the target, and then you'll also need to rotate who soaks it to prevent players from dying, either from outright damage or having the debuff and soaking when they shouldn't. That's just going to add a bit more situational awareness to the fight and some extra damage to heal up. Overall, it should be a relatively straightforward fight for most players, which is fitting seeing as it's the second boss on this raid's roster. There aren't too many new or exciting mechanics in here, but I do think they fit together to create a fun dance with some cool visuals. The Halo mechanic specifically could trip some players up, but I'm sure we'll figure out the most optimal way of dealing with that early on. As long as you play cleanly and have the DPS to break the shields and beat the end rage, you'll do fine. You'll also get some pretty amazing scenery to look at while you do this particular dance, which is always nice too. This is definitely going to be a fight that gets much easier with gear as well, and as you progress through the raid and gear up, this fight will become a Zerg fest for sure. But that's our first look at the Dausegne encounter in the Sepulcher of the First Ones. What do you think from what you've seen so far? How do you think this boss's name is actually pronounced? Because you know I butchered the heck out of it. Leave all your thoughts in the comment section below. A big thank you to all of our supporters over on Patreon and to everyone who's subscribed on Twitch. You can see their names floating by on screen. If you want to see more videos like this, make sure to subscribe and ring that notification bell so you never miss another video. Thanks for watching folks, good luck and have fun, and as always I will see you next time.